What's up, guys? Daniel Elias Fishing here, and today I'm going to tell you the top 5 baits you need to have tied on when you go fishing in the month of November. So let's get it started with my number 1 bait that you should have tied on every time you hit the water this month, and that's going to be a football jig. Okay, a football jig is an excellent bait for you to throw in November because bass tend to feed really heavily on crawfish and they really move throughout the water column. So although you will have some shallow bass, a lot of times they'll get deep as well. And a football jig can be really, really effective this time of year. Now, not all football jigs are the same. You've got really big football jigs, and then you've got more finesse style football jigs. Now, where I live in Arizona, our crawfish don't really get that big. They can in the summertime, and really in the summertime is when I throw a large football jig. But in the fall, I transition to jigs like these that are a lot more compact because they get bit much better in November. You'll still catch really big fish on them. Now, the one thing I would tell you is you don't want trailers that have a ton of action. So a lot of times I'll like throwing a Shape 108 as a trailer. I enjoy throwing a Power Hog as a trailer. It has kind of those curl tails on there. But in the month of November, when you're getting closer to the wintertime, that action is overpowering for bass. So really, I keep it simple. I prefer a chigger craw. So a lot of times that's either going to be a 3 or a 4-inch chigger craw that I will put on the back of a jig, and that's how I throw it. This is not the time of year where you want to put real big hops into your jig. It's going to be more of just a drag, or if you're fishing kind of some steeper banks, it's really just going to be pull it over the ledge, let it fall. Fish it a little bit slower this time of year, but a football jig will probably catch your biggest bass in November. Now, number 2 is a jerkbait. But not just any jerkbait. What I want is a deep diving jerkbait. So I generally don't catch them real close to the surface on jerkbaits in November like you do in the spring. So for me, what I turn to is the Berkley Stunner +1 jerkbait. The Stunner line is amazing. If you haven't given it a try, I highly suggest it. They are fish catching machines. This has probably become my favorite color, which is called Stone Cold. It's just a super versatile color. It's kind of unique. It looks a little bit like Pro Blue, but it's got some pink in it. It works really well. But get the jerkbait, fish it on light line. Don't tie this on to 15-pound test. You're not going to get the bites. Tie it on to 10-pound. And kind of a limber rod. I really like a 7-foot Fantasista X, but like a 7-foot medium is going to be ideal for a jerkbait. And then your cadence, obviously you want to put pauses in like you always do with jerkbaits, but the cadence, you really need to match that to where we're at in November and the water temperature. So if it's still warm, fish them faster. As the month progresses, I mean, we get a pretty significant cool down. You'll want to slow down on those baits and put longer pauses and more of twitches and not rips. But give the Stunner 112 +1 a shot. I think you're really going to like that one. Now, my third bait I'll use when the bite gets a little bit tougher, kind of almost like the jig, but it's more finessey, which is going to be the Shaky Head. So I love throwing a Shaky Head worm. And if you ever notice the colors that I throw, I keep it pretty simple. I don't throw a ton of colors. I got the green pumpkins. I got like this one, the watermelon red, the cinnamon blues, that sort of stuff. I don't really fancy it up. I don't feel like I need 10 million colors. 3 or 4 really is going to run the gamut. But specifically what I like is a 1/4 ounce Shaky Head, a straight tail worm. This is a bottom hopper, a 6-inch bottom hopper, 6 1/4. So it's a Berkley power bait bottom hopper in watermelon red, which really that color catches them everywhere and anywhere. But obviously you're going to fish this on a spinning rod. Early in the month or in dirty water, you can get away with 8-pound test. As you move closer to December, or if you're in clearer water, you should really downsize to 6. And I know 6 is kind of light on a shaky head. However, you will get far more bites on that lighter line, especially in the clear water. Now, the fourth bait, probably my favorite one to throw in November, is a crankbait. But for me specifically in November, that's going to be the money badger. So the money badger, if you have not thrown this, trust me when I say this, you are missing out. It is an incredible cool water crank. So what I would tell you is where this is really going to excel is when your water temperatures get to about 65 degrees and lower. So anywhere from 65 into the mid 50s, right? 55, 54, even 53. The money badger is going to excel. When it gets below that mid 50 range, I'll move to a different crank, typically the dime. But in November, a lot of times we're between those temperatures of 55 and 65, and I love the money badger. Now, how do you pick a color, right? Because these are two totally different colors. You've got a shad color and you've got a crawfish color. And I throw both, but at very specific times. So I'm going to give you a gem here on this one. Pay attention to the moon phase. Always look at the moon phase before you go to the lake. When you are around a full moon, now I'm talking, the 5 days, 5 or 6 days prior to the full moon, up to about 5 or 6 days after the full moon, that's when crawfish are most active. And that's when bass tend to feed more heavily on crawfish. So if you're close to that full moon, a craw color is absolute money. That's when you should be throwing a craw colored money badger. Now, if you're away from that full moon, if you're closer to the new moon or not within, that 5-6 days of either direction of the full moon, that's when you want to go to your shad colors, because the shad colors will generally outproduce the craw colors when you get away from the full moon, because the bass tend to key more on the shad and not the craws. Trust me when I say this, that works. It's a great thing to remember. When you are around the full moon, throw anything that looks like a crawdad. Hope that one helps. Now the fifth and final bait, which is one that's been newer to me over the last year or so, is going to be the Berkley Power Switch. So y'all probably saw my video on this. Silver Bullet, hard to beat that color. This is HD Purple Wizard, I believe. Yeah, HD Purple Wizard. This is something that you can throw on forward-facing sonar on those fish that start to go and follow shad a little bit later in the month. So think of it almost like a spoon bite, right? Those fish start to move out. They get on the long points and the long flats, and they get around that shad, right? Big shad balls. And you'll see shad balls that have bass under them, and that's a great time to pull out the Berkley Power Switch and give that a shot. Now, I like the 3/8 and the 5/8 ounce model, so they're 3-inch and 3.5 inch. That's what I've done my most damage on. The HD Purple Wizard and the Silver Bullet are probably my two favorites. I don't know how well you can see that, but two really awesome colors that look like shad. You can throw it on a more finesse bait caster. A lot of people like to throw it on a spinning rod. You can do that as well. But keep the line kind of light. I would say 8-pound for maybe the 5/8. The 3-inch model, you can probably go to 6 realistically. But look for those balls of shad, and you can cast to actively feeding bass that are out there swimming around. So guys, those are my top 5 baits. I don't know if you agree with me. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you have something that you think is better. And if you do, I want to hear about it. Leave me a comment down in the comment section. Maybe there's a specific video or a bait or a product or a technique that you want to hear me talk about in the future. If there is, leave me a comment and I will be sure to do it. I appreciate you guys hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. And like always, I will see you on the next one.